the wildlife on the islands were exploited extensively for the oil and fur trade, and some of the populations were decimated by this. There's, for example, one record of a single hunting event that killed more than 1,500 southern elephant seals, and currently the entire population on the whole island is approximately that number. So it's very difficult to imagine how abundant the wildlife must have been before those type of hunting events, and it continued for a couple of years. And then also there's still artifacts, as you can see at the bottom, from that area. It's like iron kettles, some weapons. Some of them are getting so degraded now, if you don't know it's a weapon, you won't know. But there's a rifle on the island, and then also the big iron pots that's about the circumference of this table. Huge things that they use to cook penguins and seals in for their oil. Yeah. And then just for future reference later in the presentation, that red little star is where the base is currently situated on the island. Okay. In 1947, the HMSAS Transvaal, it's a South African warship, left Cape Town under very secretive auspices to annex the island for South Africa, and up to date it's actually our only territory in the southern Arctic waters of the Southern Ocean that South Africa possesses. So it was quite a feat, and we are very proud of it. And immediately a meteorological station was erected, and that's where all your weather predictions come from, just by the way. From that time, as still today, there's 3 weather guys on the island that sends through all the data the whole day. And then a little bit later, the research base was added to that. The base currently is maintained and administered by the DFFE. Okay, just to backtrack a little bit. So how did I actually get to this place? It all started as a little girl when my mom decided not to give me a rubber duck, but an orca to play in the bath with. So that thing was phenomenal to me. I only recently realized it's gone, because we had it until I was full in my adulthood. It might be lost in some of our moves, but anyways, that sparked the interest in marine life for me. Long story short, I had a very long and winding road, but I ended up studying to become a vet, and I've always had a special interest in marine wildlife. And in my final year, I saw an advert about a killer whale position to do photogrammetry on killer whales on Marion, and that immediately told me I need to get there. But to increase my chances to actually get an interview, I somehow applied for the sealer position as well, to do biology work on that. And yeah, I got the interview. I ended up getting the sealer position, like I said, and I boarded the SA Agulhus, which is South Africa's polar research vessel, for the first time in April 2014. And I didn't know that this expedition was going to change my whole life. Everything in my life is basically measured before Marion and after Marion. That's how significant this year was for me. Okay, quickly to go back, sorry. I was sick the whole trip, so I have almost no footage or photos of the whole trip. I came out of my cubicle just as we approached the island for the first time, and some of my team members actually kind of forgot I was there. So, but yeah. That view on the left was my very first image of the island. It looks like a bad photograph, but it was actually extremely hazy, and we were lucky to actually see the island. A lot of times you arrive there and there's nothing, there's just clouds. So, yeah, and then you have to wait for a few days before you can actually get off the ship. It was a little bit more intimidating than I thought it would be. I didn't know how mountainous this island is, and we have to move around over some of these mountains continuously to do some of the work. But man, the excitement trumps every time. And on subsequent trips, I can't tell you, my heart skips a beat even more than that first time when I go back. Oh, and then something interesting, the yellow building that you see on the right, that's the new research base. The colors might seem odd to you. It looks like a spaceshipy type of sci-fi thing, but there's actually a little bit of science behind it. That specific yellow is very visible even in bad weather. So that has been a lifeline for many field workers when you have to get back to base, but you can't see where you're going, and then you just see this yellowish thing in the mist, and then you know you're on the right track. So yeah. Okay, and then on day 2 on the island, one of my longest life dreams came true, and I saw killer whale for the first time, 10 meters from me. And she's a beautiful girl. She, unfortunately, in the meantime, has passed on, but she left 2 beautiful calves that is now the residents around the island. And then within the next month, I got to see and eat a piece of an iceberg for the first time, and it was delicious. And then I very quickly also learned how quickly the weather can change. I will show you this little clip. So I was doing my job in that direction that you can see now, and it's beautiful, sun is shining, wind is still, but you get this weird feeling something's up, and then you turn around for the first time, and that's on its way. And you are still about 12 kilometers from base, and you still need to do all your work all the way to base. That specific storm caught up to me about in 10 minutes after I shot this video. But yeah, we don't care, it's wonderful. Over the next year, I got to practice some veterinary skills on the amazing marine mammals that you find there, and I absolutely fell in love with the 3 seal species there, which includes the southern elephant seals that you see in these pictures, as well as the 2 fur seal species, the Antarctic and sub-Antarctic fur seal. Working with these animals inevitably leads to some very close encounters. Sometimes you have to get away very quickly in weird situations, and it leads to very wet boots, as you can see in the right. Yeah, so we were never ever dry in that year, even on a sunshine day. But for every scary moment, there was 100 spectacular ones, and it was such a privilege to actually get to know and work with these animals so closely throughout the whole cycle of their year. Even the fur seals, they became like family to me, and I often found myself having full-on conversations with them, especially the little pups, because they are just so inquisitive, and once they gang up, they're not scared. Then they come and investigate you if you sit still. And then working on the coastline mostly allowed us to look for seals in penguin colonies, some in excess of about 400,000 pairs at a specific beach. So it became a game of where's Wally, but on a much greater scale. Yeah, it was interesting, and if an elephant seal bull chases you and there's penguins in the way, let's just say penguins come second. So the research personnel also tried to help each other out. So if you were a birder, you helped the sealers. If the sealers had time, we helped the birders. And we got to work with some of the incredible birds there. This is a juvenile wandering albatross. So she hasn't fledged yet, but just shows you the size. So their wingspan is more than 3 meters. So if they open up their wings, it's more than a little car. It's phenomenal to see, especially if they stand next to you and they're displaying. So yeah, it's quite spectacular. And then there's too many to talk about. I just made a little collage of some of the birds that we saw on a daily basis and worked with. Your macaroni and rockhopper penguins, gentoo penguins, sooty albatrosses, your sub-Antarctic skuas, giant petrels, to name a few. So I was very fortunate. I had 2 phenomenal teams. So I overwintered 2 times, M71 and M75. And these people are literally family to me. We still have contact almost on a daily, weekly, if not daily basis with some of them. So yeah, you get to know these people very well. My first team the dynamic was very different from my second team. First team, we were only 4 women and 15 guys. And the second team, we were the largest team ever to go to Marion, which was half-half, 12-12. So it was very different dynamics, but both were spectacular. Now I'm going to show you 2 videos. It was made by the nature program 50/50 a few years ago. They couldn't get to the island, so they got all their footage from our team, the sealers, and they put this together for us, and this gives you the best synopsis of the actual work that we did. So I hope you enjoy.
Marion Island, approximately halfway between South Africa and Antarctica. One of two Prince Edward Islands in the southern Indian Ocean. It's a harsh environment, with a mean annual temperature of 4 degrees and constant strong winds. These islands are inhospitable, and only a few are adapted to survive here. Both islands have been declared special nature reserves, and the resident penguin, seabird, and seal colonies see no more than 100 humans a year on these isolated volcanic protrusions. The only way to get here is by ship, the SA Agulhus II, and once a year, it brings a handful of people to work a 13-month stint on Marion and take the presiding group back to South Africa. As the island has no harbor, the big ship moors offshore and personnel are transported to the base camp by air. For the newcomers, this is their first view of their new home. Most of the personnel are researchers collecting data on the fauna and flora of these unique sub-Antarctic islands.
Everything that we know and have around us and that we understand how it functions improves our lives. And understanding the world at large and all its components helps us to better support ourselves as a species, but also to better take care of this environment that we depend on. Specifically, Marion Island research related to seals and to killer whales, which is what we do there. This gives us very good ideas about what's going on in the oceans surrounding the islands, but in the broader Southern Ocean as well, which is essentially the conveyor belt for all the world's oceans. So changes that take place in the Southern Ocean can be seen as early warning signals for what might be going on in the rest of the world's oceans. And obviously the oceans depict what the climate's going to be like anywhere in the world globally. And so understanding changes in the oceans at the top predator level can give us some ideas about what's happening with the ecosystem in general.
Dr. Nico Dubrain is the principal investigator for one of the longest running research projects in this faraway land, the Marion Island Marine Mammal Program, or the MIMMP as it is locally known. This University of Pretoria initiative collects data on specifically elephant seals and 2 fur seal species that make use of the volcanic beaches for breeding and molting, as well as the population of killer whales that follows the seals to Marion Island. The MIMMP is one of of the largest marine mammal programs of its kind in the world, and what sets it apart from other marine mammal research programs is that data has been collected on seals for over 30 years on a daily basis in both summer and through the harsh winters.
The longer that you continue collecting data for individuals, and for the more individuals you do that, the more confident you can become in seeing patterns in a population. And patterns really is what we're interested in, patterns and trends. Because over time, a trend is a super valuable item in any study for that matter. If you take climate change, for example, we know that the climate has been doing X for 100 years. All of a sudden, over 2 years, it's not doing X anymore. That's different. So the trend has suddenly changed. A pattern has changed. Straight away, we can ask questions related to exactly why has that change taken place. And that is why we continue doing research for so long with these individuals, because the data becomes exponentially more valuable.
Every year, the MIMMP program sends in a fresh batch of field researchers to take over from the previous data collection group. These are once-in-a-lifetime job opportunities and comprise of 2 or 3 sealer field personnel who mainly focus on seals.
Die routine van 'n sealer wissel baie deur die jaar. Dit hang af van die seisoene. So basies in die winter toe ons daar aangekom het, die grootste werk wat ons toegehad het is om die sensusse van die olifantrobbe aan die gang te hou.
A census of southern elephant seals which are currently tagged at birth, following which we recite the tagged information.
And the guys are walking thousands of kilometers, literally, around that island to every beach to check every elephant seal that comes out for the presence of tags in its hind flippers that we would have placed when it was a pup. And if there are tags, then noting down all sorts of details associated with that.
Waar dit presies is, wat hulle geslag is, en dan hoeveel diere ook ongemerk is.
Following which we log that into a computer and have that data available for further analysis.
So that's a large proportion of the sealer's work. It's the mark recapture experiment. Of course, there's a lot of fur seal work as well, and that relates to weighing of little pups throughout the year, because fur seals have a different cycle. So there's pups at Marion Island for a large part of the year.
Ons het 3 spanne waar ons elke maand die kleintjies weeg. Dit is om te bepaal hoe goed hulle groei en hoe effektief die maas hulle voer in basis.
Along with all other data collected by the sealers, tracking devices are also placed on individual seals. But in order to put a device on a large elephant seal, one has to immobilize it first, as these hulky animals can move surprisingly fast.
Nou die ding van die olifantroof, al die wille, hulle is so groot, dat hulle, as hulle regop staan, kan hulle amper jou beet kry, hulle beweeg redelijk vinnig. Mens dink dat hulle so groot is, kan hulle diere nie beweeg, maar hulle is vinnig.
The tracking devices are glued on with an epoxy resin that comes off during their annual molt, and the sealers can then retrieve the data. This gives scientists an idea of where the seals go to feed and what their activities entail once they leave the shore. But for every answer the scientists uncover, 2 more questions follow. Yet finding the answers is not the end goal for the researchers. The MIMMP is looking at much bigger questions that affect not just the island and its inhabitants, but the whole human race and the world as we know it.
There's another one. Wait, there's more.
Marion Island and its smaller brother, Prince Edward Island, are in the sub-Antarctic Ocean, almost halfway to Antarctica. These undisturbed lands give refuge to large numbers of animals, and researchers can study them in an unaltered environment. The Marion Island Marine Mammal Program has been running for over 30 years and added an additional focus to the program in 2006. Killer whales.
People have always been interested in killer whales at Marion Island, but there was actually very little work done on them until about 2006, where we started compiling what we call a photo ID catalog, so we could start getting an idea of which killer whales are there at what time of year, and basically follow individuals through their lives.
In essence, this is also a mock recapture study, and it's all based on sightings of these large mammals. All killer whales have unique markings and scratches on their dorsal fins and saddle patches. By taking photographs of the dorsal fins, whalers can determine how many members are in the groups, how many new calves there are, and how they affect the seal and penguin populations around Marion.
And then for my PhD, we followed on that kind of bigger picture with more specific things like actually what do the killer whales there eat, where do they go when they're not at Marion Island, because they're not always at the island, and just all the time adding smaller pieces to this bigger puzzle.
The population around Marion consists of one or a few related big matriarchs and about 45 other members broken up into smaller groups that tend to stay close to one another within their larger social structure. Globally, killer whales are relatively free to roam wherever they want. But what makes them interesting is that they seldom leave their own broader populations. One idea suggests this is because each population has a preferred food source. Each member thus learns the skill to hunt only that type of food, and this skill makes them stick together. For example, in other parts of the world, not all killer whale populations feed on the same prey. In the North Pacific, some groups will specialize in salmon-type fish, while others, in the very same vicinity, will only hunt marine mammals and nothing else. But the Marion killer whales don't seem to specialize like others. They eat fish, hunt seals and penguins, and even include squid in their diet. One possible reason for this is the seasonal migration of the penguins and seals that makes marine mammals more abundant as a food source in summer. The whales must then alter their diets during the winter months. It's mysteries such as these and a host of others that the researchers are trying to solve.
There's this quote I really like, which is the larger the spotlight, the larger the circumference of the unknown. So as you find things out, you realize how many more questions there are. and that leads to a lot of further work. And at Marion Island, that's really the case. As you get to know a small piece of the system, you just realize that there's so much more you need to know or would like to know about the place.
But it's not just these specific species in which the researchers are interested. Being isolated in the sub-Antarctic waters, Marion and Prince Edward Islands have much simpler ecosystems than mainland systems, as there are far fewer species in these food webs. This means they react immediately to the slightest changes in the environment, and that is ultimately the interest of the researchers. Due to this sensitivity, these islands act as early warning systems and predict what will happen on the more complex mainland systems, the places we call home. But change is already happening, brought about by our own activities, far away from Marion Island.
We should move away from viewing an environment as part of the space that we live in, but rather view the Earth as interconnected ecosystem which get affected by our day-to-day activities. For example, climate change is quite an issue and has been felt and seen in Marion Island and also its surrounding waters.
But the more we learn, the better we can manage negative change. So scientists continue their work on this rugged and enigmatic island. All the researchers who have had the privilege of visiting this faraway place have also experienced change within themselves.
It's because it's a simple life. This is nature as intended. There is no person's house up on a hill or power lines or roads or cars. You walk everywhere you need to go. The simple things in life matter. Eat, sleep, and get your work done.
Die tipe werk en in die omstandighede wat ons het gedoen het jou geleer dat jy hoef nooit weer bang te wees vir enige fisiese werk nie. Want mens kan baie meer doen as wat jy ooit gedoen het. Jy klim berge, gaan doen jou werk, klim en terug. In ongelooflike slegte weer, jy weet, en die werk moet gedoen word. So jy leer hoe om net jou kop neergesit en die werk te doen.
It sort of develop you if you have the right attitude. I was some sort of an introvert, but back then, the team that I was with, reached out for me and made me what I am today. Today I can, talk to people, make jokes about anything and never get offended.
Also, you feel free. You can walk and you can stop when you want to stop and take a photo and look at things. Experience the wind. Listen to a bird. And the freedom and the peace associated with that, which is just the natural cycle going through year after year. You have the chance to actually observe nature doing its thing.
Get to know a place very intimately through its annual cycle. So you see Marion in her quiet time when there's not much happening, it's cold, the days are very short, but then a few months later you get to see her in her summer dress when there's just millions of animals and so many things happening, seal pups being born, penguin chicks. It just becomes this buzzing island in the sea.
En skielik het jy kleintjies op. En dis net geluide en maas wat hulle kleintjies roep. En daar's net soveel lewe. Dit is rarig aanvoelbaar as jy op die eiland is. En het is so mooi om te sien hoe die figure eintlik gebaar is. Daar's bande daar. En hoe sorg van daar.
Miss the clean air, like the smell of the place, the feeling of the wind, even though it gets super annoying. I miss that a lot. You can it's just this Marion-ness that you miss.
To keep going for 13 months in that sort of weather, doing the challenging work that you have to do, real kudos go to the guys and girls that stick it out as being seeders for the year.
You spend a year there, it gives you a very different perspective on life, I think. It really changes you for the better.
Okay, dankie. Does anyone have any questions? Yes. To Marion Island, you mean? No, it's a completely different population. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. Is this on? So the question was if the killer whales that are here currently ever switch with the Marion ones, and no, they are completely different populations. So the ones at Marion stay kind of in the region. They do travel quite large distances, but they never come up this side. Yeah.
So how dependent are all of those animals on fresh water?
Most of them are adapted to actually utilize salt water. Especially the seabirds. You'll see, like giant petrels have these tubular noses, and penguins have salt glands that they actually excrete. But they do drink the fresh water on the island as well when they're on land. Yeah.
It's hard to believe an elephant seal can catch anything. What fish what do they bring?
Okay, the question is what prey does elephant seals have? They basically eat mainly fish, squids, but we have had individuals that actually attack, especially seal pups. It's not a common thing, but they will sometimes, elephant seal bull will just swallow a pup, which is quite horrific. But it's, like I said, it's an exception rather than a rule. It's mainly fish, squid, yeah. That's it. You will not believe how fast they are. Even on land, like I've been chased many a times where I had to run full speed away and I barely got away. And that is on land where they are actually very clumsy. But in the water they are extremely quick. Even with those big bodies, they actually, I've seen them get away from a killer whale, which is saying something. Anything else?
Maybe you could just tell people how these elephant seals, they're the champion deep divers.
Oh, yes. So elephant seals are phenomenal animals. They are very sexually dimorphic, so the sizes between the males and females vary a lot. Adult females get up to about 400 to 600 kilograms, where the males are between 3 to 4 tons. It's quite something. So it's like literally a rhinoceros without legs. But they can dive up to, I think the deepest dive that they've recorded is 2.4 kilometers. And they can keep their breath for hours. And they basically just kind of go into a sleep mode and start drifting down. And then once they are at the depth that they want to be, they wake themselves up and do what they want to do, and then they can shoot up again. It's quite special. Yeah, and that's the deepest recorded one, so we don't know. There might be deeper ones. Yeah. Anything else? Yes. Okay, so the sealer work, we never stopped. We just spread out the work on a little bit longer cycle. So we'd have a 10-day cycle in which we have to do our entire census of the island, whereas in the busy breeding season, it's a week. So we just continued. There were very rare occasions where we actually had to call it quits and go back inside. One was when I walked out of base and the wind knocked me over so that I rolled down the hill. So I decided to go back. But that's basically the only reasons. When you can't go close to cliffs, when the wind is so bad, that's when you would not do it. But yeah, you just kind of had to find ways and be inventive, sometimes crawling on your stomach to get where you have to go. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Wait, that's another.
Is that station highly based?
Yes. Yeah, no, internationally it's very well known and everyone understands the research that goes on there. They actually have a lot of international people that want to work there. They try and do collaborations, but because Marion is South Africa's only sub-Antarctic research station, they try and give South Africans first dibs, which is great because it develops our scientific community and gives people the chance to actually go to these places that you otherwise would never be able to go. It's the same with like the French islands like Crozet. They mainly take French people. If you're lucky, you can get a spot on their team if something happens and they don't have enough people. But yeah, so this is our hub. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
From your perspective now, how do you see the future of our teams around here?
Sure, that's a very difficult question. So we know they are in trouble, but a lot of entities are trying to find ways to work together and try and find a way forward in terms of how we can make the situation better. It's not just one factor that affects their declining numbers. It's not just one industry or one type of person or one group of people that influences this. It's a global thing. By now, it's not just even local. It's a thing that affects penguins globally. So yeah, it's basically just to work together as much as possible. Yeah. Yeah.
One more.
Okay, so
That's another marine engineering.
Yes. I'll give you a quick answer. So years ago they thought it was a good idea to take cats to the island to try and eradicate mice, because mice got onto the ships of old and they just got onto the island with luggage and spread and started breeding and started eating all the birds, and they are still doing that. So someone decided to take 4 cats. They didn't neuter them, which was unfortunate. So the cats bred as well. And then the cats decided, mice are too difficult to catch, let's eat the birds. So they had a 20-year-long cat eradication program that was concluded, I think, in the 1990s, which was successful. The cats were officially eradicated. And now the Mouse-Free Marion program is raising funds. They are aiming for 2025 to eradicate mice from Marion Island. If not 2025, they'll push it another year. But it's going to be a very difficult thing. It's a very big island. It's going to be the biggest one where they actually try this. But luckily, there's been good success all over the world, in New Zealand and other islands. And they've got the procedure down. Now it's just logistics and getting the funds ready and getting all the teams together that have the expertise. Luckily, they do have people involved that's been part of planning for previous eradication programs. So let's hope within the next 5 years we can eradicate mice as well, because that will change the island back to such a nice, pristine state in a few years, because the mice have been eating all the plant seeds, all the insects are disappearing. That have knock-on effects on the plants as well. And now a few years ago they started attacking the bird chicks, because they just sit on their nests. They don't know about predators, so they're killing the chicks on the nests. And unfortunately, I think it was last year, the first recorded killing of an adult albatross by mice was recorded. Yeah. So it needs to be done. It's not something that can wait another 10 years. Yeah.
Oh. Yes.
You said the orcas are very specialized hunters. Does this mean the different populations and different behavior in general as well?
Yes, that's kind of what they alluded to. So because they try and, like you said, hunt a specific species, they learn a certain behavior, and that's why he said they stick together. But like Marion was special because they did everything. They just learned all the tricks of the trade, basically. Yeah. Anything else?
Right. Can we end that? Yes, go for it.
She is standing here because the government gave me in 2004 the opportunity to go to Marion Island. So I went there on a changeover. So it was just a 6 week, a week there, 4 weeks on the island and a week back. And I was very lucky to be working with people walking around the island to see and set up a study to see how will tourism be affecting the bird populations in different areas and so on. So that changed my life forever. I've been very lucky to visit many sub-Antarctic islands subsequently. But the work that they've done there is really amazing. And while I was there, the birders always used to tell me that the sealers, they're the tough guys. So she must be really tough.
Yeah, we've been only in total 8 women sealers on the island. So
some
women
of
power.
those seals, some of those seals we do find on our coast. Luckily, you are our eyes and ears, and people phone us. And some of them has been tagged, and they can then follow them up and down. Some has been taken back into the warm waters and then released. So now that she's here, I hope that at some stage there's a big male elephant seal here. Maybe we can put a tag on you.
Yes.
the smaller sub-Antarctic fur seals that come out here, and if you read the papers of those that's been tagged, it's just incredible how fast they move, how far they move, and in what short periods of time they move. So it's for us very nice and a privilege to have Liezl here now. I hope she stays for a while. I always say, if I interview people, the problem won't be the work, it will be me. So I hope it won't be me, but yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Listen, I always want to say, no, it's fine, she's used to elephant seals. She'll be okay with you. I just quickly wanted to say, yes, we're really privileged to have you here. When we were kids, little girls growing up, we always said, like, oh, one day you want to be Miss South Africa, so maybe we should start teaching daughters and girls to one day grow up to be a sealer on Marion Island. And I've seen it when she came for the first visit after going white on the ocean, but saying, no, I want to work with marine mammals, so I'm getting over feeling seasick, I'm just going to do it. She's tried everything, so it's not like a thing that she can control. So I had to go back to the airport, and just after the Gebouw township, way before Solaris Pass, there was a couple who broke down in their car, and I looked at her and I was like, should we stop? And like immediately Liezl was like, oh, yes, stop. Where other people would go, no, somebody else can stop. We're 2 ladies. We were there, the clutch burnt out, and the husband couldn't get out of the car. They were probably in their 80s. They were on their way to meet their daughter. We were on the phoned the daughter. We loaded them, all the luggage. They were going to stay with her for a week, his walker into Wilfred's car. And we drove over the mountain, and we got to their daughter at the airport, and she was so relieved. So I could see immediately that there's nothing that she's scared of. If something needs to be done, she will get it done. So yeah, we're incredibly thankful to have you here. I would also like to quickly hand over some flowers. So Kari asked me earlier, like, does Liezl like wine? And I'm like, no, she's not gluten, she doesn't like wine. Make it something nice. So Liezl, just a little something that we would like to give to you to say thank you.
Thank you.
And we are definitely going to keep you here. Also so very interesting is celebrating Women's Day tomorrow and talking about all those incredible women in science. that Liezl's second name is Eleanor. So obviously I have to end before we're going to have some lovely soup. I want to end with Eleanor Roosevelt's quote. But before I do that, I remembered something that Wilfred told me to do. I also just wanted to quickly remind you that the reason why we've got this incredible event here as well is because of your support. So we need your support. We need you to send your friends and family to come and visit us at the African Penguin and Seabird Sanctuary. We need you to send them to come out on the boats to do the eco tours. We need you to support all the conservation work we do at Dar Island Conservation Trust, so we can get these incredible people to come here to do research and to help us with the conservation work. And now I'm going to end with Eleanor Roosevelt for Women's Day tomorrow. And she said, it's a very well-known quote, "A woman is like a tea bag. You can't tell how strong she is until you put her in hot water." So thank you to all the women being here tonight. Thank you, Liezl. Let's go enjoy some soup. And yeah, thank you all for being here and for supporting the conservation work we do. Thank you.